This week's video is going to be about the types of GPs that there are and just some of the opportunities to be had in general practice. As always, if you like the video, then make sure you give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't subscribed and you like the content, then make sure you subscribe. Start off by talking about some of the types of GPs that there are. So there are three main types of GPs. The first type of GP is a salaried GP. So this is where the GP is employed by the practice and they have all the benefits of someone who's employed. So that is annual leave, that is sick pay, maternity pay, pension, and so on. It's fairly easy to change jobs. Some of the negatives may be don't necessarily have control or a say in how the practice is run, but some GPs who are salaried like this aspect. The second type of GP would be called a GP partner. Now this is a GP, maybe more than one GP, so you might have a number of partners running the practice, and these partners are essentially self-employed. So these GPs are running a small business in effect. They receive a share of the profits. However, they don't receive all the benefits of someone who's employed like the salaried GP. However, you may think that actually running the practice and having a share of the profits is better than being employed. So of course, if they're self-employed, they'll have to pay their own tax, and they share responsibility with the other partners in the practice. You do have some practices where you just have one GP partner, but a lot of the time, because you have to share the responsibility, which is a positive of having someone else on board, more often than not you will find that there are many partners, but depending on the size of the practice and what there is to do, you can run a practice independently. So if you have more than one GP partner, they share responsibility in terms of financial aspects of the business, how the GP practice is run, what services that they would offer, employing staff, and so on. So a big positive would obviously be you get to have a massive say in how the practice is run. So they get to decide on employing staff. They might want a nurse in the practice, a nurse practitioner, a pharmacist, and they obviously decide on what services that they can offer. So that could be minor procedures. You can have a MDT or multidisciplinary team, and the partners obviously have a say in all of this. Now, as a GP partner, in most cases, it means that you're going to be committed to the practice for many, many years. And this offers great continuity for both staff members, both doctors, and for patients. The third type of GP I'm going to talk about is a locum. Now, this traditionally has been seen as a GP who is temporary, filling in the gaps at a GP surgery. But there are many cases where locums are actually permanent at a practice, or what we call a long-term locum. Again, the benefits of this to some people might be that you are self-employed, you can even start a limited company, you have more career autonomy, you have more flexible working, you can go to multiple practices and work. There is a potential to earn a significant amount of money as well. And some GPs might find that actually it's good because they don't have to take part in things like practice meetings. They can actually just go to the surgery, do their session, and then leave. Those are the three main types that I'm going to talk about. I will touch on GPs with a specialist interest or GPs with extended roles towards the latter part of the video, but I thought I would just give a brief overview of the three main types of GPs. So now I'm going to talk about just some of the opportunities that are to be had in general practice. So I've done a couple of other videos about general practice. I've done a video about why I chose a career in general practice, which I will link up for you. I've also done a video on the pros and cons to a career in general practice. And I've also done another video on how to become a GP. So make sure you check those out. Like I've touched on in previous videos, there is a significant amount of time for a GP to be invested in medical education. So you can teach medical students at the medical schools, you can teach them at your GP surgery, you can also teach GP trainees as a GP trainer, you can teach your colleagues, you can teach at monthly meetings For other GPs, you can become an appraiser. So this is where you look at other GPs' portfolios, you assess them. You can become an examiner for the Royal College of General Practitioners or RCGP to assess candidates who are going to take their CSA or clinical skills assessment. You can also be an examiner for the GMC or General Medical Council like myself. You can examine medical students. You can also take part in research and development at universities. You can also take part in research at pharmaceutical companies. Now, there are many opportunities to be involved in leadership as a GP. You can be a lead at your own GP surgery, so that could be safeguarding of children or vulnerable adults. You could take on a lead role at the CCG or clinical commissioning group. You can also develop a portfolio career, and I talk much more about a portfolio career in a previous video which I've linked up to as well for you. So many GPs work during the weekdays. They may work very long days, but they may not work any weekends. But as a GP, you do have the option of working during the weekends, working during nights, and this is all part of out of hours work. You can also work for NHS 111, and there is also the option to be a private GP and undertake private work. Now, the RCGP has introduced a new term called a GP with an extended role, which encompasses GPs with specialist interests. So as a GP, you can undertake further education, complete a diploma, and then become a GP with a specialist interest or GP with an extended role. There are many different diplomas out there. You can undertake a diploma in paediatrics, in dermatology, and so on and so forth. I'm going to talk about GPs with extended roles a little bit later. But now, coming back to opportunities, general practice can be used as a foundation to get into other specialties. So for instance, there are some GPs who have then gone on to become palliative medicine consultants, or even work in occupational medicine, which is medicine related to the world of work. You can even work as a ship doctor and maybe work on cruise ships. You can even work with the military, with the police as forensic medical examiners. You can even work in the media, in medical journalism, medical writing, even politics. So I'm now going to talk about the GP with an extended role. So this is defined by the RCGP as a GP who undertakes, in addition to their core general practice, a role that is beyond the scope of GP training and the MRCGP and requires further training. So like I mentioned, this could be a diploma. The extended role is typically undertaken within a contract or setting that distinguishes it from standard general practice and/or is an activity offered for a fee outside of care to the registered practice population. So this could be teaching, training, research, occupational medicine, or even medical legal reports, cosmetic procedures, and so on and so forth. So the way this could work is you could be a GP with an extended role or specialist interest and then assume a lead role at the practice or outside of the practice. And this would be in the maybe local community or even wider area. You could help develop guidelines and care pathways and services. So GPs with an extended role can improve care in a number of ways. Number one, they can ensure that patients don't have to go to specialist services like the hospital because they can undertake a lot of specialist care within the practice, for instance. So they can manage the condition at specialist level, but they can also manage multiple medical conditions and maintain a holistic approach. They can also ensure that care is kept close to the person's home and help the patient by reducing delays that may occur if they were waiting for an appointment at the hospital. And so by improving their skills, they can support and teach their colleagues in the GP surgery. So other positives would be reducing costs and unnecessary secondary care referrals, so that's referrals to the hospital. So just going back to research, so some GPs who are interested in research can undertake academic clinical pathways, and that would be in the form of an academic clinical fellowship. And this may progress to clinical lectureship. And as a GP, you can take a career break. If it's under 2 years, you wouldn't need any more training. But if it is for more than 2 years, for whatever reason, you would have to undertake a refresher program. So that's a brief summary of just some of the opportunities within general practice. Like I've said before, it's a really good career and I would definitely recommend it to those of you who are unsure about choosing a career or who have chosen a career but are thinking about changing careers. So again, if you like the video, then why don't you give it a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe if you haven't subscribed already.